Here we are going into the 4th of July. There's so many people with so many opportunities in front of them. There's a lot of people who are just stressed out and burnout. There's a lot of great things, but there's also a lot of really difficult things happening in our world. What I felt like we needed was an inspiring story. We don't often talk about what people can do in this industry, the opportunities that are all around them. What I wanted to do was to inspire you through Eric Turner's story. This is a man who's been through the trenches. He's gone from project manager to founder, and I'm hoping that you're able to pick something up from him that inspires you about your own journey. Welcome to the Pioneercast. I'm Dwayne Abels, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. I hope over the next few minutes you're able to find something specifically from Eric's journey that helps you inspired about yours. Take the leap, use a lot of courage, and apply what you're learning here to help move your journey and someone else's forward. I'm here with Eric Turner from Forge Construction. Eric, thanks for hanging out and joining me.
Man, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, so
Not too often we get to do this on a boat in the middle of the lake.
yeah, I know. Here we are shooting this. It's a Monday afternoon. We're at Lake Perry.
Lake Perry, yep.
In northeast Kansas, and it's beautiful out here.
It's a great day.
Yeah,
it's a great day to be on the water.
It is. I appreciate you volunteering the prop for your boat here.
Hey, I'm just glad we can enjoy it.
Yeah, I was telling Gabe, my harp and sling team here, like this is a first for us. We've never shot anything floating or on a boat, so this is kind of fun.
It's going to be something new for both of us.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. You and I have worked together for, several years now. This is our second or third assignment together, and I'm excited to pull your story out of you and to share it with our viewers. I think what you're doing right now is extraordinary, which we're going to explain here in a second. But I think looking back over time and understanding your story and seeing how one milestone led to the next one is really helpful for people who are either at the last stage of their career and trying to maximize it, or they may even be at the front part of their career and trying to figure out their path. And I feel like your story can speak to both those types of people and where they're at.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you are going to have to pull it out of me. You know, I don't like to talk about it much.
Right.
But no, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey with lots of challenges, lots of successes, and lots of ups and downs in between. But it's been a lot of fun, and I don't know, it's been a good ride.
Cool. Okay, so let's start with giving us a quick overview of Forge, what you guys do, where you're at in the process of growth, how long you've been in business, etc.
Yeah.
Fill us in a little bit.
No, I'd love to. So I started Forge Construction in July of 2020. Prior to that, I had another company, commercial general contracting company, and things just didn't work out how we had kind of the vision, and so I took that opportunity to do it again, I guess. It wasn't easy. Took a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of self-time. I really had to dig deep and make sure that's what I wanted to do again. But, if it hadn't been for my family and, just a lot of people that I had surrounded myself with, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So I got to thank them first and foremost for, just the support and standing behind me and convincing me to do it again.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, people underestimate and undercommunicate the amount of support, emotional, physical, mental, that it takes for a founder to do something like you've done. Like, people just don't understand how that rock or that cornerstone is what propels us to doing things like this.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I say all the time that I'm gonna be in debt to a lot of people for my entire life, and that's not. I don't mean that financially. I just mean from the emotional and physical and coaching. I've had some great mentors throughout my career. A lot of people don't even realize what they've done for me just from a mentoring standpoint, a coaching standpoint. But I've had a lot of people that have stood behind me and told me to go do it. And I don't know what else I'd be doing, Dwayne. It's been phenomenal.
Well, you told me, you did tell me at one time you thought about being a postman. I mean, this is a true fact.
It is a fact. It is a fact.
But I think it just illustrates the fact that we get burnt out and tired, and you can sometimes make crazy decisions in the midst of starting something and doing something extraordinary.
A true story. Prior to starting Forge, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Construction is all I did know, but I was burnt out. I didn't have a lot of faith and a lot of trust in myself. And I did. I told my family, I said, I'm just, going to become a mailman and go drive the country roads and deal with all the old ladies yelling at me for because I didn't put their mailbox in their mail in their mailbox right. But man, I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so real quick, give us a 30-second overview of Forge today.
Yeah. So Forge Construction today, like I said, started in July of 2020. Had a handful of clients that said, "Hey, you need to do this again, and we've got some work for you." And over the last 4.5, almost 5 years now, it's grown to something I never thought it could become. We're actively pursuing work in 5 markets. Healthcare is probably one of our biggest markets with nonprofit and philanthropic. There, right, right behind it. But then corporate, retail, and light industrial has really what's built us. Um, we're more than doubled in size from 2024 to what we're projecting in 2025, and that's really grown from not just in the Kansas City metro, but we have clients taking us to Iowa and Nebraska and South Dakota and pretty much the entire state of Kansas and in western Missouri. So we've been very fortunate. Very fortunate. It's been very humbling, but it's been a lot of work.
Yeah, it has been. It's clear as I followed you and you're starting it, and then the last several years and watch you. The one thing that is phenomenal about what you're doing is attracting the type of people that you have on your team. Say a little bit about that.
Yeah.
How would you describe your team?
Once again, I've been very fortunate. It's one of those things where the majority of the people on our team are people that I've worked with in the past. So there was a relationship there. There was an understanding of how they worked, but more importantly, how I worked. And we've been very fortunate. With Ryan Dahl coming on board and taking over operations, that was I was the gurgling was keeping me up at night. I felt like I was drowning with everything that we had going on, and getting him on board, getting Derek Cox and Michael Strick continuing to take a big step with the pre-construction and estimating side, and then just all the support staff. We got a phenomenal team, and like I said, I feel very lucky and very fortunate. And then on the field side with getting Randy Buck to come on board, 40 plus years of experience and helping kind of mold our field and now with Brandon Buck and Kyle Branch and Scott Murphy and all these guys that are really stepping up and they're doing what we need to do. They're bringing projects to completion successfully and continuing to build that reputation where clients want to work with us.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so let's go all the way back to like your high school time frame. What I'm looking for in this kind of conversation is like walk us through a little bit of your high school and college. Now I know I've heard some stories about college, but just help us understand how you started making the connections between your energy and your drive, and getting into construction. Just kind of walk us through a little bit of that journey from high school and college.
Yeah, high school, I'll be honest, I wasn't a great student. I had a lot of fun, loved to play sports, loved to work. I had a full-time, almost pretty much a full-time job all through high school. I spent as much time as I could on my grandparents' farm and my granddad instilled a lot of hard work and what that meant and understanding what relationships can do for you. And so, high school I was kind of lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad was very successful in the natural gas industry and but back then everybody said you have to go to college if you're going to be somebody. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to do that. Wasn't ended up enrolling at K-State, a week before classes started. So late I couldn't even live in the dorms. Had an apartment my first year and which was good, but wasn't great for the studies and the focus and that. But I went to K State. It was really computer engineering was really taking off there, and I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. And that burnout really fast, but it was just because I wasn't ready. I wasn't mature enough to go to college, and I learned that, after being there a couple years. So that was an expensive learning experience, but after being there for a little bit and kind of developing my circle of friends and the guys and the girls that I was running around with, a lot of them were civil engineering, architectural engineering, construction science, and management. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anything about construction science and management, and, after a couple failures in some of the stuff I was trying to focus on, I learned more about it and started enrolling some classes, and once I did that, man, I found my passion.
Mm.
I found my passion, I found my drive. Still, you know, 26 years, 27 years later, I still didn't think I'd be here, But I really found something I was passionate about and something I could get behind, and it was life changing. It really was. It was life changing, and I still look back going, okay, if I hadn't have made that decision, where would I be today? And who knows?
Yeah. So, talking about K-State, was it the subject matter that really started pulling on your heartstrings, or was it a professor, or was it an internship, or what was it that just really started?
Really, it was just the subject matter. Construction science and management was fairly new back then. And, it was the subject matter understanding that I could get out and, I wouldn't be in the office all the time. I could be out, be on the job site and seeing the work that we were doing, making a difference. Um, and so it was just really getting a better understanding of what it was and what it could mean and where I could go with it.
Mm, that's awesome. Okay, so transition from Manhattan into first job, first career, first opportunity.
Yeah. I wasn't focused on internships like I should have been. And so the summer before I graduated, I'm like, man, I gotta get my shit together. I
Mm,
gotta figure out what I'm gonna do. And through my wife's cousin, Kevin Istis, introduced me to MBK construction out in Southern California. And I'm like, man, farm kid from Kansas, why not? I need to get out of here and go see the world. So I did an internship out in LA. Office was in Irvine, and I was the first intern they'd ever had. I was by far the youngest individual in the office. And so I went out there for the internship. They didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. They really didn't have any kind of program. And, I just jumped in with both feet. Every day I was going by somebody's office saying, hey, what can I do? Teach me something
mhm,
pretty much. And the summer went phenomenal. It went so well that about 2 weeks before I was ready to wrap up my internship and go back to K-State, they pulled me in off and they said, "Hey, we'd like for you to come out here when you graduate, but more importantly, we'd like to hire you right now, and you work for us full time. You just turn in your hours, each week, and let's we need your help." And so I was doing a lot of estimating and pre-construction back then, so I could do a bunch of takeoffs. They'd send me a set of drawings. I'd do takeoffs for them and email them back to the office and that. And so I did it. I was very fortunate,
mm,
very lucky to be in that position. So my last semester of school, I didn't have to work outside of working for MBK before. I was always, you know, trying to make ends meet and working full time and trying to go to school and it took a lot of load off me that last semester of school, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, made some money, and started learning more about the construction industry.
man, as you were talking about that, you're really connecting with me. I'm around a lot of guys from K-State specifically that are in construction science, and, I hear that story more often than I recognize. It's the guy or the gal who is finishing up, they're transitioning from school to career, and they're just trying to figure out a way to make ends meet. That could be a tough spot.
It was a tough spot, I was stressed. It was time for me to grow up, and I didn't know how to.
Mm,
I really didn't know how to do it. I was, no secret, I bartended, pretty much to get my way through college, and it was great money, easy money,
mhm.
fun money, but I knew I had to do something else to get by and more importantly, to support a family
Yeah,
someday, so.
yeah. Speaking of family, I think you met someone pretty spectacular, like many people in Manhattan, but you specifically, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was very fortunate to meet my wife at K-State and kind of funny story. Her and her group of friends would come in and enjoy their after studies relaxation, I guess, with us. And
Mhm,
and so we got to know each other. We were friends for quite a while before we even started dating. And I finally convinced her to go on a date, and then we dated the rest of the time I was at K-State and dated the entire time I was on the road between California and Colorado. And it just things worked out perfect with I'd been in California, they had a job come up in Colorado, and they knew that California wasn't my gig, and, they knew I loved Colorado, loved the mountains, loved to snow ski, and they had an opportunity for me to go run a project in Westminster, and so they come in my office one day and said, "Hey, what do you think about Colorado?" And I'm like, "I love it, why?" They're
mm,
like, "What do you think about going and running a job in Colorado?" I'm like,
mhm.
"I'm out of here. Yeah, tell me when to be there."
Yeah.
And so yeah, it worked out great. I was in Colorado for about 10 months, working on a job. Brandy and I were still doing the long distance thing, and I was wrapping up there, and I was trying to decide, do I stay in Colorado? I knew I wasn't going back to California, and so I was trying to figure out, do I stay in Colorado? Do I start looking back home? And I got a call from Pete Vaglin, with Walton Construction at the time, and it was kind of funny. The company I was working for in Walton, we serviced the same client. We were all doing AMC theaters all over the country, and Walton had really picked up that niche, and we're doing a lot of them, and so there was a lot of synergy there, and my name had been brought up in some conversations with AMC, and so he kind of knew my history and knew us from Kansas and knew a little bit about Brandy and knew about my family's farm, and so he called me one day and he said, "Kid, it's time for you to come to Kansas City."
Mm,
And I was blessed.
yeah.
Just the stars aligned, and that's what brought me back to Kansas City.
So before we transition into your kind of career, I feel like there's maybe an important message here for any emerging, construction professional that's finishing up college or they're in college now. Maybe they're K-State, hopefully they're K-State or Pitt somewhere. But what would you say to them about their journey and, 2025, 2026? What would you encourage them to do at this point?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, I've shared a little bit of my journey, and I didn't do things the right way, right? I got lucky, and I was fortunate enough to meet some very influential people early in my career, and the thing I tell kids today is anytime you get the opportunity to do an internship, whether it's the entire summer or over Christmas break, do it because you're exposed to so much that maybe you don't realize what you're learning then, and you don't understand the lingo and understand the process and procedures and that, but the important thing is you're learning it and it's being, socked away and, later in life, you'll be put in a position or somebody be talking about something and you'll know what they're talking about. You'll have been, "Oh, yeah, I do know something about that." So, always take the opportunity to do internships. Another thing I tell a lot of our younger associates and kids we're interviewing is interview as much as you can. Even if you have a job offer, continue to interview because those skills help you so much later in life with, just the professional conversations some interviews aren't easy.
Mm,
They put you in some tough spots and some tough questions it's an opportunity you'll never get later in life, right?
yeah.
Once you take a job and you're working for somebody, the only time you get interviews if you're looking to make a move.
Yeah.
So as much as you get that, and as much as these universities offer that to you, take advantage of it.
Mm.
You can never have enough of that.
So a lot of people oftentimes don't understand how valuable the network is that you pick up accidentally at K-State or wherever you may be at.
Yeah,
Is that true?
100%. And it starts early, right? Even in high school when get the opportunity to go to these Um, shit, let me start over. What are those things called? Career fairs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Even in high school with the career fairs, just do it, right? Even if you don't know what you're gonna do, you're getting exposed to different things and having different conversations. But, my network has helped me tremendously throughout my career and continues to help me every day. I tell our team, I was heavily involved in DBIA when I first come back to Kansas City, and it wasn't something that I knew a lot about. But it was something I became very passionate about very quick as I got more exposed to it. And I lean on that network all the time.
Yeah.
Different relationships, whether it be architects, whether it be other peers in the industry, trade partners. I made so many relationships and developed so many key professional and personal relationships through that organization
Yeah.
that I mean it's you can't put a dollar
You
amount to
you
it.
cannot, right.
You can't put a dollar amount to it, and just the amount of knowledge that I have through those individuals is priceless.
You mentioned DBA, and for years I couldn't remember this, but I just connected. That's where we met.
It is.
Yeah,
But
so, DBIA I jumped into right out of college as well, just like you did in 2000, right, back in the day. But the amount of people that I've met there, the amount of education I got on project delivery methods and how it's different by state. I mean, there's so much you learn, but it takes a lot of courage to get out and go to those events as a young person. There's no question.
It does, and you just gotta open yourself up,
Yeah.
right? You gotta be vulnerable a little bit, and trust me, there's a lot of very good professionals that are part of that organization, and they recognize that when somebody's new and putting themselves out there, and they'll take you underneath their wing and you never know what you're gonna learn from them or opportunities are gonna come.
Yeah.
I'll be specific. When I was heavily involved with DBI, that's when I met Ramin Cherfat with McCown Gordon. I would have not to say I wouldn't have ever got that opportunity to go and work with such a great organization, but that's where that relationship developed was through
Okay.
DBIA. Getting the opportunity to meet him and work side by side with him and gave me the opportunity to join him and not that I was the key to where they're at today, but I played a part in that,
Yeah.
and that's very meaningful to me to say I was part of McCown Gordon and the organization, and look at what they've done and how successful they are.
Well, given what you did there, I think it's safe to say you had a significant impact on the organization. So let's talk about that. We went from Walton, now transitioning over to McCown Gordon.
Yeah.
What did you do at McCown Gordon, and what did you learn there that propels you to doing other things?
Yeah. Well, there was a stop. There was 2 stops before that. I had accepted a position with Pat and Brett and Ramin, and, last minute, I got convinced to change my mind, and I ended up at J. Dunn.
Oh,
And, that was the big blue talking, right? It was an opportunity to go work for one of the, the largest general contractor in Kansas City at the time, and, um, I learned a lot in about myself and kind of about my drive and passion because and not that it was a failure by any means. I learned a lot. But after being there a short amount of time, I realized that that wasn't my jam.
mhm.
And great organization, very successful organization, some phenomenal leaders and peers there, but it wasn't for me. Way too big. I'd went from a company where I was involved in pre-construction, business development, operations, our self-perform group, and then, got to J Dunn and they're like, "Hey, here's a set of drawings that we want you to go, be the project manager on this." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's great, but when do I get a when do I get to, go do some business development?" And that's just not how they were built. And so, I took that detour, learned a lot from it, don't regret it. I learned a lot from it, but also learned more about myself and what I was looking for from the industry. I like to be involved in so much more than just being a project manager.
You're making a killer point. This is so critical. If you're an emerging leader or if you're midstream in your career, and you are realizing that the environment that you're in now, or the business that you're in now, or the business model that they have right now isn't a good fit for you, you got to make a change. And I love this part of your story because so many people get stuck in an organization or a position that just isn't in alignment with them, but they don't make the change.
Well, it's not good for you, but it's not good for the organization either,
Yeah, yeah,
right? There's no reason why you should suffer. First and foremost, you personally and your family, right? Because we all, as much as we say we don't want to bring it home, we bring those tough days home.
yeah.
It's tough not to. But yeah, if you're not happy, then number one, you got to speak up to somebody within the organization. Say, hey, I'm not happy. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Right? That should be your first stop. And then if it doesn't work and if it's not a good fit, you got to make a change,
Yeah.
right? And change is tough, right? Change is difficult for so many reasons,
Mhm.
both personally and professionally. But you got to make sure you're happy,
Yeah.
right? There's so many people in this world that I'm not gonna say suffer or struggle, but they do just because they're in a position that they're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Maybe they're have responsibilities that they wanna do, but they're not trained to do. And so you gotta speak up. You
Yeah.
gotta speak up, and you gotta go get the help you need.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so back to McCown Gordon. I'm really interested to hear this
Yeah.
part of your career because I know a lot of what you fundamentally implement, you picked up at some of these stops. I'm just kind of curious at McCown Gordon, what was your role and what were some key things that you picked up that were really critical to your personal toolbox?
A lot, and I mean a lot specifically in McCown Gordon that I'll share, but I picked up a lot along the way. When I was at Walton Construction, and I love to tell this story. Jeff Turk was my mentor,
Mm,
which
yeah,
phenomenal guy, very well respected,
absolutely.
in our industry, one of the smartest individuals I've ever worked with. But for the first year, I thought he absolutely hated me. He didn't, wasn't very outgoing with me and communicative and that, but man, he just kept putting stuff on my plate. I'm like, God, this guy, but he taught me so much more about myself,
Mhm.
of trusting myself and trust what you're doing. If you don't know, make sure you ask the question instead of going rogue thinking, oh, I know how to do this.
Right.
And then, because I did that a few times and I put some stuff on his desk and, I always made the joke that we used to have to write all of our contracts and scopes of work and then he'd take them home and he'd review them every night. I don't know when that guy ever slept, but he'd review them every night. And the next day they'd be on your desk. And I think it was his goal to go through a red pen every night because he redlined everything, and I'm like, "Man, I can't do anything right." But I learned so much from that, right? And I learned to slow down and be methodical and think through all the different scenarios um, and it's funny that, just little things that I learned from him, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, whatever it is, that I still do today. And there's times I'll do something in my office. I'm like, shit, Jeff used to do that to me all the time.
Yeah.
But um, but really started with him. He was a phenomenal mentor. We got to actually grew really, really close. I say it all the time. He's one of the best mentors I've ever had, and I truly mean that. Um, but we grew personally as well. We became really, really good friends, and I'll tell you, when I decided to leave and make the change at Walton, that was the toughest conversation.
Mm.
That One of the toughest conversations I've had ever had in my career was to let him know I was going a different direction, and I didn't know it at the time, but when we were having that conversation, he's like, "Man, it's hard for me to swallow," because in his mind, it was always his intent for he and I to go partner up and do something outside of Walton. And I didn't know that, until I resigned, but still stay very close with him. Obviously he's done phenomenal and developed a even,
Yeah.
just an unbelievable career at Van Trust and what they're doing, and now with their science and health, and the guy's just crazy successful,
He is.
crazy successful. But yeah, so when I got the opportunity the second time to go to McCown Gordon, I couldn't do it fast enough. I'll never forget, I was in the car with my wife, and it was my son's birthday, and I'd taken the day off of work, and Ramin called and came up on caller ID, and Brandy's like, "Well, who is it?" And I was like, "Well, it's Ramin," and I was like, "I'm not gonna answer it." She's like, "No, you need to answer that phone call."
Mhm.
And man, I'm so glad I did.
Mm.
So we got on the phone. He said, we want to have a conversation with you again, and we're not going to accept no for an answer.
Mm.
We want to figure out a way to get you over here. And I'm so thankful to what he did, and Pat and Brett and everybody. Jay Lucas was very instrumental in my leadership and my growth, and Nancy, which congratulations to her, she just retired. But I gotta be involved in so much. I went over there as a senior project manager. Um, and there were no promises with anything in my opportunity, but they said, "Hey, we want to get you on board, and then here's kind of a roadmap, but it's up to you to see this to success, I guess." And so I just I went over there, and I put my head down, and you know I I learned a lot,
Yeah.
there's no secret. A lot of people know Ramin and I's relationship wasn't the best, but it's funny now. I look back on it and see myself in the position that I am today, and I'm like, man, I understand, why he looked at way things different than I did, and that's one of those things where I was learning a lot then, and I sometimes I took it as it wasn't as positive,
Mm.
but there's so many positives I could take away from that opportunity and that experience that has really helped us build to where we're at today. Um, we were talking about it earlier a little bit off air. A lot of our culture and a lot of our process procedures early on in McCown Gordon, that's what we've emulated, and we're improving in the areas that we need to improve and changing the things that fit us better. But there's a lot of similarities between what we're doing today and what I took away from McCown Gordon and others, from other companies along the line. But I can say a lot from McCown Gordon and the opportunities they gave me, and just the exposure. They exposed me to so much. When I was part of our management team, and the FMI experience. We're
Mhm.
very similar to what Forge is now doing with Pioneer IQ, and we'll talk a little bit about more about that. But that was my first exposure, and if it hadn't have been for Pat and Brett and Ramin and Jeff Plastic and those guys saying, "Hey, Eric needs to be part of this," I never would have got that opportunity. And it's I use it every day.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so if you're an emerging leader listening to this, I think it's really important just to Captain Obvious point out a lot of men and women get so caught up in the project and what they're doing in the moment and the tactical things, which they need to do. What I hope you're hearing from Eric is take advantage of all aspects of your opportunity. His environment, he picked up things from the culture, he picked up processes and procedures, he picked up a network, he picked up leadership capabilities, he picked up policies that he's implementing. It's just important that we're fully aware of all that you can take in from an opportunity, not just the paycheck, right? There's a whole lot more
There,
that you got to
there's
the table.
there's so much more, and the other thing, I'll never forget when I word got out, or I was promoted to director of operations. Jay Lucas was director of operations of the field, and he and I had a really good relationship. But he come in my office one day and he said, "Eric," he said, "I hate to tell you this, but you're going to fail." And I mean, just floored me, right? I mean, I'm like, "You're here to support me," but he punched me. He punched me right in the mouth, And I'll never forget that conversation, just how pointed he was, but how passionate he was about it. He didn't want me to fail.
Yeah.
Um, but, he pointed out, some of my shortcomings and things that maybe I was a little bit too immature, maybe a little bit too, egotistical. I don't like to look at myself that way, but it was very humbling for Jay Lucas to tell me that, just because of how much I respected him. McCown Gordon did a lot of things with different leadership opportunities, I did my first 360 review over there, and I'm sure you're familiar with that,
Mhm.
but I was scared to death. I was literally scared to death, I sent everything out, and I'll never forget that day I had my first meeting with Susan, to get the results. I didn't wanna go,
Mm.
but it was very humbling. There was a lot that I could work on, and they were, everybody that filled out the surveys and the information, they were very honest, but it helped me,
Yeah.
and I don't hold that against anybody,
Yeah.
because I needed that, especially in the position that I was in, and the responsibilities that they were giving me. Very humbling, but I'll tell you what, it was life-changing,
Mm.
right?
Sounds like
I just went through another one, a couple years ago, and it was really interesting to see some of the things that I was lacking before are now some of my strengths, but there's still a lot that I'm lacking on, and I learn something new every day, and fortunately, I've got a good team that I've surrounded myself with, that support me, and they pick up a lot of those shortcomings that I have, and they take and run with it and help the team and continue to develop the team. And so, we got a great group of individuals. Um, we've got, the kind of the senior level, and then we have some guys like Alex O'Laughlin and Chris Inkin and Ryan Trotnick that are, really starting to take that next step and continue to develop that leadership level of our organization. So, now we can really start hiring those new grads and the younger associates, and I'm very confident that we've got the leadership and the talent in place to help develop them into our next generation of leaders.
yeah, speaking of Alex, didn't he just win AGC Project Manager of the
He
Year?
did, yeah, no.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. He's actually won it, 3 times now. Won it this year, and the year before last.
Wow.
I can't tell you how proud I am of that kid. He's got the drive, he's got the passion, he's got all the tools.
Yeah.
Now it's just figuring out when to use them and how to apply them.
Yeah.
But he's great.
Yeah.
And like I've said, he's really close to taking that next step, with the organization, and I couldn't be more proud of him.
That's great. Okay, so, after McCown Gordon, you had a couple stops, and then you're at Forge. Fill us in
Yeah.
real quick on that.
Yeah, so, yeah, I had a couple stops, like I said, well, I'd left McCown Gordon, and, it was nothing bad. It was, we just went through the ESOP, and, I had seen, with my time at J. Dunn, the experience of a big organization and big company, and, I kinda saw that on the horizon, and I don't have a crystal ball, I spent a lot of time with Brett,
Mhm.
going through that transition, and I was asking a lot of questions of, "Hey, what's this mean, and where's the organization gonna go?" And that relation or that organization, and still today, but not as much today as what we were then, they were a 100% relationship-driven company, right? The relationships that company had and the associates had is really what helped propel
Mm.
McCown Gordon to where they're at today. And I just felt like that was gonna change a little bit. And I just, it was my opportunity to say, "Hey, I've done what I can here." That that place was growing like crazy, and there was gonna be a lot of change and that for the good. But I just didn't feel like it was home for me
Yeah.
anymore. So I left, took the opportunity to go run a smaller company. Was really struggling. You and I actually got to spend a lot of time working together with that organization,
Yeah.
but it was an opportunity for me to kind of go do my own thing,
Yeah.
right? Um, I wasn't prepared to take that risk of starting my own deal, and frankly, I didn't have the faith in myself to be able to go do it.
Yeah. Good.
Um, so I took that jump, and that was interesting. Once again, something I'll never regret. But holy cow,
I would say
what an
that was hard.
experience! That was hard.
That was hard.
That was a lot of time, a lot of commitment, a lot of time away from my family. Um, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, in the office, and then going home and trying to work more. But, unfortunately, the company had went through some hard times, a lot of outstanding claims and litigation, but I man, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna take this opportunity. I'm gonna hit it head on." And, I did. I didn't back down from anything. I was backed
Mhm.
in a corner numerous times, with different things, trying to get it cleaned up, it was the challenge, right?
Yeah,
I've always had the motto of failure is not an option,
right.
and it was not an option. We were gonna figure it out. And so, brought in a really solid team, surrounded myself with good people again, and, we were clipping away, right? Clipping away. Reached out to Pioneer IQ, or I don't know if you reached out to me, I reached out to you, but I needed help. I needed a lot of help. And so that's when we went through
Yeah.
the true north. A lot of time together, all new business plan, all new operations plan, company name, the whole 9 yards. Unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition, which at the time I didn't understand, but I do now. It was a
Mhm.
pride thing. So, that was my time of, okay, you've shown you can do it. You've learned a lot of how not to do it.
Yeah.
You've learned a lot of how to do it with the past experiences. And so, I made that jump.
Yeah.
And like I said, unfortunately it didn't work out. But once again, I learned a lot
Mhm.
from that opportunity and from that relationship. And once again, I don't regret it. I
Mhm.
don't regret it. People say all the time, what if you had those 3 years back with Forge? And yeah, Forge would be different. But once again, I don't regret it.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from it, and it made me, enjoy the last
Mhm.
5 years and appreciate the last 5 years that much more.
Absolutely. I love what you said there because a lot of people don't understand this. I think if I could summarize that, you had it in your gut and you had it in your heart to be a founder. You just weren't quite sure yet. And that one particular experience, as hard as it was, allowed you to fully experience what it takes and then give you the confidence to know, okay, I think I could do this, especially if I made it through that situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a trying situation for everybody,
Yeah.
for me, for my family,
Yeah.
for a lot of my friends, right? They didn't think it was fair.
Mhm.
But it is what it is. It's water under the bridge. Once again, I learned a lot from it. But looking back on that and looking back on, 5 years ago starting Forge, I don't lack confidence, but I lack confidence. I truly do, and people don't see that in me. Um, but I lack a lot of confidence, and I just didn't have the confidence that I could
Yeah.
go do it, and go do it right, right?
Yeah.
And with the whole model failure not being an option, I was always scared of, what's that going to look like? What are people going to think of me? I had this great opportunity at McCown Gordon to continue to help develop that company and be part of that company, I'll never forget when I left there, people were like, "You lost your mind." And I thought, there's days that I thought the same thing, but I'm so glad that I've done what I've done. Um, Forge wouldn't be where it's at today if I hadn't had all those experiences. If I hadn't had all those mentors
Mhm.
and support system. And that's the thing that I'll tell everybody that's considering to go start their own company is you don't understand the support system that you have.
Yeah.
And not that I took it for granted. I didn't take it for granted at all. I just didn't realize how deep it was and how wide it was,
Yeah.
as soon as I made that, the decision to start Forge, and, I'd start people start coming out or calling and saying, "Hey, you're doing the right thing. We're here to help. How can we help you?" Introductions, whatever it might be. And it was amazing. It's still amazing today. We started that company off, the relationships that we had and the people that were reaching out. And it's just amazing to take a step back now. And it's hard to do sometimes because we're so busy, but take a step back now and look at, man, where did some of these relationships that we're
Mhm.
working with today, where they come from? And it's easy to connect the dots.
Yeah.
It's really easy. And it's just so rewarding. To know, hey, these people did care. These people did care, and they were willing to make those introductions and stand behind us,
Yeah.
right? It's really hard for me to put my name on somebody unless I really, really know them, and, I'm really confident they can do something, but people are doing that for us.
Yeah.
And, y we've been very successful because of that, and that's very meaningful for them to do that, and we're gonna make damn sure we're successful, and we stand behind what they've done for us.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Okay, so fast forward, you're in year 5.
Yep.
Interesting side note. It is interesting that it's your wedding anniversary in the same month as your company's anniversary.
Well, company anniversary is July,
Okay.
wedding anniversary is June,
I was
but
off there a little bit.
But that's okay, yeah. Yeah, so I just turned 50 this year. So it's been, the last month has been, I never had a month-long birthday, but my wife, man, she outdid it this year, with surprise birthday party, family vacation to Turks, another getaway, this weekend with some friends just she did a phenomenal job, but yeah, so turned 50, just celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary, on Saturday out here on the lake, on the boat, with some friends and family and just yeah, a lot going on, and now 5 years and into July.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here on the journey, and how it was like starting Forge. Walk us through where we are today and what we're doing going forward. Just personally, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you and hanging out with your team, and I feel privileged and honored just to be able to play a big part of defining your true north and helping with guiding principles, purpose, and vision, and developing your leaders. But I'm really anxious for you to communicate what's the future look like, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, that's what we're working on now. As I've said, I never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd be in the position we are today, our 5th year in. But it was time. It was really time to define who are we, right? I mean, I know what I wanted out, what I wanted the company to be, and there's, with the Forge and the brand that we've created, that's been very, very obvious. But what I didn't know where we were going. I didn't, and I'm so glad you reached out and we started having these conversations, about this time last year because, um, I I wasn't sure, right? I wasn't sure if we wanted to continue to grow or if we needed to scale it back a little bit. Um, but that's the journey that we're on, with everything that you and your team have done is amazing. Right? There's myself and seven other individuals that are part of this group. And we've had a lot of feedback as well from the rest of the team and the rest of the company to help us to get to where we're at. But now having our guiding principles defined, our purpose and our vision defined, that's been very, very calming for
Mm,
me because the feedback that we've got from the team, the feedback we've got from the 7 individuals that are participating in this with me and supporting the process, everybody's aligned.
mm,
And it's just, uh, it's like a movie almost to me. Um I knew we had a bunch of like-minded individuals. We had a lot of leaders and a lot of passion, and a lot of drive, but you don't really know until you sit down and start having these conversations. And our 3-day retreat, it was amazing to be part of those conversations and just for me just to sit back and listen to everybody else talk, because everybody was pulling in the same direction. There wasn't one time we had to take a timeout and say, okay, wait a second,
right.
somebody's talking about something that we haven't talked about or is not in line with what we've been talking about. It was not that way for 3 days. Everybody was aligned and like I said, pulling in the same direction. And so, where we're going is, we've sat down, we've really trying to identify the next 10 years of the company
Mm,
and what's that mean from a revenue standpoint? What's that mean from a vertical market standpoint? What's that mean from a geographical market standpoint? What's that mean with this rollout and getting the rest of communicating to the rest of the team our guiding principles, our purpose, and our vision. And it's really ironic how the brand and the brand message with how the company was developed, with how much similarities there are with our new guiding principles, purpose, and vision. Um, it's it, it's it's very calming and comforting for me knowing that we've developed a team that wants to continue to take this company and grow this company, continue to develop the relationships that we've developed and develop more. We sat down and we identify the vertical markets that we're focused on today, and we've been very fortunate to be very diversified in a short amount of time. But to see that what that diversification means going forward over the next 10 years, it's exciting. It's really exciting, and just to hear the passion and the, just the personal buy-in, right?
mhm,
The personal buy-in and how that's d developed into the professional buy-in of the company and of the
mhm.
team. It's exciting. It's
Yeah.
really exciting, to know that where we're at, we started this journey with you, and your team back in October, started with the leadership development, just the buy-in from those guys. They were sponges, right?
Mhm.
They were sponges getting that opportunity, and that really opened up my eyes. We need to do more.
Yeah.
We need to do more, not only with that group, but with throughout the organization. So that's kind of that next step as well as part of this rollout is identifying those other leadership opportunities and development opportunities for those individuals and the rest of the team.
Yeah. So the one thing that I've noticed about you, and to keep in mind, we've known each other for a long time, is as we were working through your true north, even at your true north when this was all being uncovered, I literally watched you start breathing easier. And it was almost like we took all the passion and all these burdens that were in your backpack about your business and what you wanted it to be and how you wanted to serve people and how you want to build community, because I know it's important to you. And every one of these other men and women started picking up on that, and I could see you just breathing better because they were carrying it the same way you were by the time we were done.
That's it. I mean, you nailed it. I knew what I felt and what I wanted to build, right? In the last 5 years has kind of shown that. Not that I've done it on my own by any means. I mean, my team and I say our team, has done so much
Mm.
to get us where we're at today. But you're right. In our true north, that's when I really started to hear everybody else's passion and everybody else's drive. Um and you're right. It was a breath of fresh air because I feel like I get on a soapbox in the office and share my drive and passion and creating value, and we want to be good stewards of our partners money, and our commitment to the community and building the community, and everybody was lockstep with me.
Mm.
Um, and there were some things that I hadn't even thought of that these other guys and team members were talking about. And I'm like, shit, I hadn't even thought about that. But that's us.
Yeah.
That's who we are. That's who we want to be. Um, so yeah, so that was very inspiring, to me was to know what I felt and know everything that I'd been thinking and what I had in my heart, but to hear them say it in their own words, but to be in line, it was very inspiring and just very meaningful to know that I've been fortunate enough to surround myself, with like-minded individuals, that have the same drive, the same passion. Now we've all got different personalities,
Yeah.
and you can attest to that.
Oh
You've
yeah.
seen them, but you need those type A's that are going to go, climb the mountain through whatever it takes, and then you need those team members they're going to help you push
Yeah.
you up the mountain, and bring the support you need to get up the mountain. And we've got that.
Yeah.
We've got that. And I always felt like I did, but when you're around the office and you're knee deep into projects and knee deep into pre-construction, you don't get to talk about things like that.
Yeah.
I do. I talk about it all the
Yeah.
time. But to get those guys away from the office and
Yeah.
and to truly hear and the feedback that we got from the other people, the other team members that aren't necessarily in the room as part of this process prior to going to the True North, and it was amazing.
Yeah. People don't understand how much effort we put into deciding who you're choosing to be a part of the leadership process for defining these things and marching the companies forward. We deliberated on that forever,
We
right?
did.
And I think we knew from the get-go, like you had a really solid group of people, but just understanding them and what they bring to the table individually and how that manifests out was crazy. Gabe and I have a picture. You may have this readily handy. I was at the end of the day and I was texting Gabe, dude, we have to stop this. Like we're grinding them to complete halt. Everybody's worn down. And then Alex or somebody threw a clue in and it closed the gap on whatever we were trying to, and your
That's
hat's on
exactly. Yep.
backwards and you're like, here we are. And you're just typing away. But I thought it was incredible.
There you got it.
No, he has it.
Yep.
Yes,
I
this
know.
moment right here. Like,
Yep. I
no,
know.
I'm making fun of you. My hat's on sideways, making fun of you, right?
Yep.
But the whole team was worn out, and we were in this point of we either need a bunch of beer
Yep.
or a big idea. Yeah, and we got the big
We
idea.
got the big idea.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, and then we had the beer later, but
Yeah, we did, right.
but no, I mean, that experience was exhausting. I mean, you ask anybody on the team and you can see it all in our videos on the last day. I mean, everybody was just wiped out.
Yeah.
But that's what it takes,
Yeah.
right? That's what it takes. And I had been through this process one other time, and so I kind of had an idea,
Yeah.
but still this was above and beyond that.
Isn't it
Very
interesting how different it is based on the leaders that you have yourself surrounded by?
100%.
Same process.
Yeah.
Completely different
Yeah.
environment and experience there.
Yeah. Yeah, these guys, they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, they
They
did.
they did a phenomenal job, and I vividly remember that, that s that moment in time as we were going through that, we were done. Right? Everybody was baked. Everybody's like, "We gotta go do something else. Let's go fishing or, let's start cooking dinner or whatever." And I think it was Alex. Alex threw something out there and we're like, "Shit, that's what we've been missing, right? That's what we missing." So then we went back to work for another hour or
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but yeah, the process was phenomenal. It, we brought a lot of stuff to the surface that we needed to talk about. Not that we were nothing was broke, and that's what I tell everybody. Nothing was broke in our company, in our process, procedures, in our vision, purpose,
Mhm.
but it wasn't defined either. So now we've got that clear definition of our guiding principles, of our purpose, of our vision. And the other thing about that whole process and that was everybody was advocating for everybody, right?
Yes, yeah.
Um, it was a true team effort where, we didn't have these flyers and nobody's feelings got hurt. There were some tough conversations,
Yeah.
that were needed but everybody was positive about it,
Mhm.
and when we kinda got in a difficult spot, we kinda took a step back and said, "Okay, let's look at this from different lenses." And not all those lenses were ours, right? Let's look from a trade partner's lens. Let's look from the lens of an owner or an architect, and, we did that, and we did that really well, and I couldn't be more proud of where we're at, and we can't share,
Right.
the exact rollout,
We're
but
free rollout at
we're
this point, right?
we're we're pretty close,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then, we've got our committee. We've taken a committee of 8 down to 4, and, those guys are debriefing myself and Dan and you of
Mhm.
kind of what that process is gonna be, and Harp and Sling is gonna be part of that. I'm excited to have them part of that process. But, we sat down last week and they really, started, dumping it on me and educate me of, "Hey, these are ideas we're having. These are what we wanna do," and I'll tell you, they've killed it.
Mhm.
I'm so excited to start this process and with the video, process and then, what we're gonna do for the associates and that it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It is.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
So a lot of people don't understand this part. This is, and you and I went back and forth on this the first time we did it, but the way that we're rolling out your purpose and vision and guiding principle, your true north, right? The bigger picture, long term. You're going to maximize that. You're doing a great job of taking your time, rolling it out internally, making sure everybody understands that. And you've done a great job of picking out some critical VIP relationships that need to know it before anybody
Yep.
else. And then you've done a really good job of picking out, and you have you have an extraordinary client list, by the way. I mean, for a 5-year company, there's a lot there, but you're able to prioritize that next layer, right? And then way down the line, we jump into social media and do a big blast publicly, but the part that people have a hard time with just because 'cause they're so excited is they don't allow themselves to share it with people who deserve to hear it before everybody else does,
100.
and when they do that, they just buy in.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how that.
And our team's first and
Yeah.
foremost, right? I mean, we've been working in a vacuum, which not entirely because we've got a lot of feedback through the different processes to let our team weigh in. But we've taken all that and we've developed this in a vacuum. So yeah, that first step of rolling out to the team is going to be great. They're dying to know.
Mhm.
What have we been working on? We put some teaser videos out there and but getting it rolled out internally is really important,
Yeah.
to make sure everybody's on the bus,
Yeah.
right? And, if somebody's not comfortable or doesn't feel like they can buy in, then, we'll have to have those tough discussions, but that's the least of my concerns.
Yeah.
I truly feel, in my heart that everybody is just gonna be bought in,
Yeah.
surround this with both arms, but it's providing clarity.
Yeah.
It's providing the clarity that we need now. We've w w we've grown really fast,
Yeah.
really, really fast, and now we gotta make sure we got all the parts and pieces,
Yeah.
in place, the leadership being a big piece of that, to make sure we can maintain this, but more
Mhm.
importantly, to continue to grow. We don't wanna become stagnant,
Yeah.
and I think we've done a really good job of identifying how we're gonna do that with your guys' help, and I can't say enough about what you and Dan and Amber and the team have done for us because, um, it's very, very, it's moving. It's very moving, um, and, the buy-in is gonna be phenomenal.
It is. So the one thing that has kept me up at night excited is we've spent so much time picking the leaders for your organization, and we've taken the time to really train them individually. And now we're at kind of the bottom of the mountain, right? We've gone around the lake, right? And we've been preparing, but we're now at this place where we're about to start building out base camp and heading up the mountain, right?
Right.
Towards your vision. I'm most excited about the fact that we're equipping each one of these leaders that we've been developing, and I know they're more than ready to start inspiring and leading their team just like you have for them. And your ability to scale the culture and the heart and soul of the company and what we're doing in each one of them is going to be amazing to watch as we start hitting some of these big goals you put in front of the
Yeah,
company.
and that's the goal, right? Is to I I don't want them to be just like me.
Right.
They gotta be their own definition of themselves, but to see their buy-in,
Mm.
and you're right, that process to identify, those individuals wasn't easy. I could have made a case for everybody with the organization of why they should be part of this, but we made it through that,
Yeah.
and I'm really happy with the team that we have.
Yeah.
I think they've done a phenomenal job,
Yeah.
but yeah, to see them now take this to the next step and start developing other leaders. Brandon Buck, I mean, that guy,
I love that guy.
to bring him out of the field, rough and tough and, out and directing the chaos that he deals with every day. And just to see what it's done for him in just a short amount of time, is priceless. And, just what that does for me as an individual to see somebody that has all the potential in the world, but just hasn't been given that opportunity. And the opportunity that we've given him and what you guys have done to help develop him, it's to hear his wife, to hear some of the things that his wife says, just from a personal level, what it's
Yeah.
doing to him. It's very touching and it makes me feel really good that he's part of it, that he's
Mhm.
bought in, and that it's making him a better professional, but more importantly, a better father.
Yeah.
And that's to have him look at it that way and it's yeah, I don't have the words for it. It's amazing.
So if you follow us at all, you probably saw the Father's Day message that we put out there, and there's a lot of things that we wanted to say, but we ended up not saying anything on Father's Day other than literally the message that Brandon had on
Yeah,
his heart at the end of the True North retreat, where people don't understand. Like, yes, it's a strategic planning process, but this is more about digging into who you are as a man and woman and what you want to achieve in your life and your career, and coming into an organization and being able to do it together,
sure.
right? And where they're talking about the True North of the company, and you're looking at a guy, everybody's gone, it's me, Gabe, and him left. And dude, the guy just had his personal plan on his heart and his kids. And honestly, he was looking at the stewardship that you had for your team and them, which is making him think about his stewardship at home,
Right.
and man, that's what it's about for sure.
100%, and I try to look at myself in that same light with what I've done at home with Brandy and, the how fortunate we've been with our 3 kids.
Yeah.
It's we've been blessed, to have the 3 kids that we have and, the the leadership and the ownership and everything that they've developed, where you see so many kids that have successful parents and they don't understand that and maybe they go out and left to right field and Brandon and I've just we've been very fortunate
Hmm.
with raising the 3 kids and Talon's off running his own company now and Jaden's what she's doing at K-State and with, president of her sorority and, the opportunities. It's been very trying for her, some of the things that she's dealt with, and I keep telling her, I'm like, "Hey, kid, you don't understand how important and how valuable these opportunities that you're dealing with today because they're developing you into somebody that's gonna be very special,
Yeah.
very, very special." And same thing with Rim. The trials and tribulations that these kids go through today, with social media and the bullying and everything that goes on in this world and she's had her own personal struggles with it but
Yeah.
but it's she's in such a good place now, um and she's a tough cat,
Yeah.
but it hasn't always been easy for her and it's still not easy for her. She's still trying to find her way and but I'm so proud of her
Mhm.
and what she's done and it's you know, kinda speaking to Brandon, he kind of, doing the same thing with Grady and, we all should be, right? Because because today's world for our kids is not easy.
Right.
It's nothing like what we grew up in.
Yeah. Right. So that's one thing that I absolutely admire about you is you've done a phenomenal job of creating an environment and a lifestyle in your home to where work-life balance is not a term I love. I think you have to develop a lifestyle based on what your vision is, right? And you've done such a good job of instilling into each one of your kids and investing into your kids and your wife that when you're with them, man, you're all in, dude. Like you're all in on them just like you're all in on a project or, you know, the
Yeah.
FAA budget project. But you've done such a great job of that. And I think the one thing I hope people hear from your message here on this topic is it's a non-negotiable. Like, if your family is a part of your life vision and you truly believe in leading at home, you have to put them first, you know,
Yeah.
sometime, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, sometimes you don't, right? And you look back on it and you're like, "Man, I should have been there more. I shouldn't have missed this event, or I should have done this, or we should have taken more vacations." Um, but the thing I'm forever grateful for is the support that Brandy's given me.
Yeah.
Um, she's the one that's always been there.
Mhm.
And I've been there absolutely as much as I can, but she's been the glue. And she's been the glue of the support and the trials and tribulations, the challenges and the wins and what she's done for me as personally and professionally, but just support what she's done for our kids and help support. But yeah, it's tough, right? It's tough and there's never enough time for family.
Mm.
And that's one of the things that as a company I try to support as much as I possibly can is hey, if you got something going on with family, kid event, doctor's appointments or whatever, be there, right?
Yeah.
Be there. We all still have a job to get done. We all still have a job. We all still have responsibilities. We have commitments to clients and projects. But if there's something going on, you need to be there. And if we need to talk about it and call an audible and help, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about kind of where we're at now is we're being able to build more of a team. We've been running so lean for the last few years and everybody's been, kind of pegged out on the meter.
Mm.
We're finally starting to be at a point where we can build some support and take some of that load off of the team and it's a process. It's
Yeah.
not easy. It's not overnight.
Yeah.
But we're really focused on that and want to continue to focus on that as we grow to make sure that we have the bandwidth to where people don't get burnt out, where
Yeah.
people have time to be with their families. It's there's a lot going on, right? In the industry and outside the industry, and you gotta be there to support everybody as much as you can.
Yeah. Okay, so, kind of down the stretch here, last big question for you. Now that you've gotten clarity on your vision specifically, and we've been able to kind of define that roadmap the next 10 years, what are you most excited about?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. I mean, there's so much, right? There's so much to be excited about. Just the opportunity that we're creating and what we've done. Um, you know, as a company, right? I'm really excited about where we're going and our true north and really defining our guiding principles and our purpose and vision and our growth curve and the KPIs that go along with that. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to see the team to continue to develop, right? Working on the org chart, identifying where are some of our gaps and how do we get those filled? How do we elevate some of the current people in their position to become that next level of leadership? That's fun. I enjoy that. I enjoy the projects. There's anybody that knows me knows how passionate I am about
Certainly.
about the projects and about the pre-construction process first and foremost, and then into the operation side. And just providing success and for these projects for our clients. I'm so passionate about that on the operations side, but now it's, I get to take a step back. We've got a team that's doing that, and I'll tell you, I struggle. I struggle with that because I've been one of those that's always been in the weeds and know exactly where every domino's at and what domino needs to fall next. But instilling that trust and that respect in the team for them to go do that now and me to manage at a higher level. We're getting there. I mean, we've with some of our key new hires, some of our key potential hires that we're working on, it's going to allow me to elevate a little bit higher, and I'm really excited about
Yeah.
that. And the other thing I'm really excited about, and I'm already doing this, but I love to mentor other people,
Mhm.
people outside of our company. A really good friend of mine started a company I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and, he came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to mentor me." And I'm like, "You know what? Even though you're gonna be a competitor someday, I'd love to do that. I wanna do that." And, I'll tell you that's been very rewarding for me, just to sit down with him and hear some of his struggles and his trials and tribulations and say, "You know what? I've been there, and here's some things to think about." That's very rewarding, as much as I can do that and whether it's in the construction industry or whatever it is, I feel like I've been put here, I've been given the opportunity, to to build a successful company, build a successful team. Let me go help others. Let me go help others and in different avenues, right? And whether I mean, I love rolling up my sleeves with an owner and figuring out how to get a performer to work. I've been exposed to the development side now, understanding the development aspect and performance and financing and returns, ROIs, all that stuff. I'm very intrigued by that. We're it's no secret. I've got a chance to do that on my own. We just bought a new office building and close to wrapping up the renovation on that and moving. But that was kind of my own little development deal over here. And I've got some great partners in it that have educated me and taught me and mentored me through the process. But there's just so much more as passionate as I am about forge construction. I mean, I can't become any I can't be any more passionate about that, but there's so many other things that I'm passionate about that this has given me the opportunity to go and do some of that.
Yeah.
And still be there for Forge and the team and help provide guidance and leadership and support. But there's lots of things that we have to do with the growth and stuff that, from a surety and a bonding and risk management and banking relationship. Oh, there's so much more that I'm working on now, getting the opportunity to work on and develop for the company to make sure we have the foundation to continue to support us. But the other thing I'm excited about. The other thing I'm excited about is spending a little bit more time with my family. There's a lot I missed out on, a lot. And my kids understand that, thankfully. But just being able to, I checked out for a week, went to Turks. Um, I've never went on vacation and just left my cell phone in the room, and I was able to do that. Now I still checked in and monitor stuff, but I had the confidence and the trust in the team that, hey, they're keeping this thing on the tracks,
Yeah.
right? The thing's on the tracks, it's not gonna come off the rails, and if they need me, they'll get a hold of me.
Yeah.
And they didn't need me, right? They didn't need me. So that was very rewarding to know that we've developed something that and leaders that can take this thing and take it to the next level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The last thing that I'm really excited about is my succession plan, right? I don't wanna be the sole owner of this company forever. That's not my goal. I currently don't have anybody in my family that really has the passion and drive to take it to the next level. So working on that succession plan and identifying what that process is gonna be. As I said, I'm 50 years old. I'm not gonna be here forever, and I don't wanna be doing this forever. But I'm really excited about getting others involved in the ownership and what that next level looks like.
Yeah. I don't know where you are heading into this 4th of July. Maybe it's 4th of July for you and you're on a lake somewhere. Maybe you're hanging out by a pool. Maybe you're hanging out with family, smoking some meat or doing something fun. Or maybe you find yourself on the other side of the stick this time. Maybe it's rough and maybe you find yourself at work or digging out of a hole. The bottom line is that whether you see it or not, there's opportunity all around you. And I hope that you've been able to pick some inspiration and courage up from Eric, listening to his journey, and you hear from his journey how he took advantage of all the hard stuff. Not all of us do that, and in this case, it's certainly paying off for Eric, the folks at Forge, and our extended community, the ones that they're impacting the most. We're sitting here on a Cobalt boat, American-made boat, sitting here talking to an American founder of a construction company. We live in a phenomenal place. You're blessed beyond measure, whether you see it or not. My hope is that you're able to take some of this and take your journey to the next level. Lead on. They need you.